Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. It's been very wet. I came in the early hours of the morning and it was dark and visibility was very low. Let's start with some macro thoughts. Oil pierces two-year high as Saudi roundup rattles markets. Oil prices have climbed by $15 from their nadir this year to breach $57 a barrel on Monday, currently at $57.50, spurred by a cascade of events that began with widespread arrests among Saudi Arabia's elite. The arrests raised the spectre of instability in the kingdoms of John Kilduff. It's another round of jawboning here to get this nervous market higher. Futures rallied 3.1% in New York to levels last seen in June 2015. Dozens of princes, government ministers and billionaires were arrested in a sweeping anti-corruption probe. The geopolitical supply risk premium is starting to rear its head in the market right now, because OPEC supply cuts have made it relevant. The low point for oil prices in New York this year was $42.05 a barrel. We're currently at $57.50 a barrel. Monday's gain also kicked up company shares with the Standard & Poor's 500 energy index advancing as much as 2%. WTI for December delivery jumped $1.71 to settle at $57.35. It's trading marginally higher. Biggest gain since September 25th on a percentage basis. Brent for January settlement surged $2.20 to settle at $64.27. We've seen a very dynamic price move. In fact, there was very heavy buying about a week or so ago. I couldn't work it out, and I think it's caught a lot of people on the hop. But the point being, I think some of this news was obviously transmitting to the market ahead of what we heard yesterday. I'll come back to that in a minute. The US Treasury two-year yield and dollar-yen best friends since 1980s, says David Inglis. The fastest growing economies of the millennium. Look at Angola and Ethiopia. As Paris Hilton would say, that's hot. Here's the Nikkei 225 price and the index RSI going back to the early 80s. That's from David Inglis. I'm bullish dollar yen, in point of fact. My eldest daughter Aisha tweeted, SolidariTee is selling t-shirts. Proceeds go to advocates abroad, providing legal aid and representation to refugees in Greece and Turkey. Very proud of Aisha. She's at Durham, where I was as well. And going up there with her was a real pleasure, I must say. And I'm so happy she's having a good time. Seeing him at the end of the diving board has us on the edge of our seats. This is remarkable. Watch this video and see what the human spirit is made of. In the book I'm reading by Salman Rushdie, the Trump character is named Gary Green Gwynplaine, a wealthy Bulgarian born with green hair who likes to refer to himself as the Joker. About this Joker and about the threat he poses to an America this writer loves, it's a treat to watch Rushdie let fly. The Joker runs for president and packs arenas, the ghouls on stage behind him swaying like doo-wop backing singers. Suddenly lying was funny, and hatred was funny, and bigotry was funny. And the entire country becomes a lurid graphic novel. That took me back to one of my favorite quotes of Salman Rushdie, which is from Imaginary Homelands. Ours is the most cryptic of centuries, its true nature a dark secret. The inside story of the Saudi Night of the Long Knives is understood by Pepe Escobar. The House of Saud's King Salman devises A high-powered anti-corruption commission appoints his son, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, aka MBS, as chairman. Right on cue, the commission detains 11 House of Saud princes, 4 current ministers, and dozens of former princes and cabinet secretaries, all charged with corruption. Hefty bank accounts are frozen and probably will be disgorged. Particularly Alwaleed's private jets are grounded. The high-profile accused lot is jailed at the Riyadh Ritz-Carlton. War breaks out within the House of Saud. As Asia Times had anticipated back in July, rumours have been swirling for months about a coup against MBS in the making. Instead, what has just happened is yet another MBS preemptive coup. This is more serious than it appears. The arrest of the 2 sons of previous King Abdullah, Princes Miteb and Turkey, was a fatal mistake. This now endangers the king himself. It was only the regard for the king that protected MBS. There are many left in the army against MBS, and they are enraged at the arrest of their commanders. To say the Saudi Arabian army is in uproar is an understatement. He'd have to arrest the whole army before he could feel secure. And in practice, blunders also followed. The House of Saud lost its lethal regime change drive in Syria and is bogged down in an unwinnable war in Yemen, which on top of it prevents MBS from exploiting the empty quarter the desert is straddling both nations. Saudi Treasury was forced to borrow on the international markets. Austerity ruled, with news of MBS buying a yacht for almost $500 million while lazing about the Côte d'Azur, not going down particularly well. Hardcore political repression is epitomized by the decapitation of Shiite leader Sheikh al-Nimr. Not only the Shiites in the eastern province are rebelling, but also Sunni provinces in the west. According to the source, he might have gotten away with the arrest of CIA favorite Mohammed bin Nayef if he smoothed it over, but MBS has now crossed the Rubicon, though he is no Caesar. The CIA regards him as totally worthless. Meanwhile, a pile-up of purges, coups, and counter-coups shall be the norm. I conclude by saying, this is a perilous moment for the House of Saud. Overextended abroad, paranoid about Iranians under the bed, and a crown prince being coached by Jared Kushner, Bibi Netanyahu, and MBZ. I also tweeted in response to a comment, princely but dead bodies litter marble floors. This looks like MBS's big move. Meanwhile, the nefarious Persians stalk their palaces. Another Saudi prince dead within 24 hours, Prince Abdulaziz, younger son of the late King Fahd, died during a gunfight while resisting arrest. The New York Times has a photograph of how the Saudi elite became 5-star prisoners at the Riyadh Ritz-Carlton. Ignatius says Kushner and MBS stayed up until 4 a.m. plotting strategy when Jared was in Riyadh. That's why Alwaleed has been caught up in the crosshairs. Prince Alwaleed's high-profile holdings underperformed as you would expect them to yesterday after his arrest. Vanity Fair is saying the Saudi regime's actions all overlaps neatly and scarily with Trump. Samir Madani says Saudi is turning into a Scorsese movie. Other developments, the Saudi king is seen here receiving the resigned Lebanese PM Hariri. Some Al Jazeera reckons he's under house arrest. Facing defeat in the proxy war in Syria, the Israeli-Saudi tandem is planning a new front against Hezbollah. And this writer says the danger is a black swan. What happens if Israel goes on attacking the Syrian army and industrial premises in Syria, which is happening almost daily, and Syria does shoot down an Israeli jet? The yield on Lebanon's $750 million of Eurobonds due in 2037 jumped 63 basis points, the most since they were issued in March. Shinzo Abe published 2 photographs of the visit of Donald Trump. Take a look at them both. China is more confident today than any time in its modern histories, notes Tom Donilon. There are favorable elements. Trump seems to have a genuinely good relationship with Shinzo Abe. In Beijing, the Chinese will roll out the red carpet with parades, ceremonies, and rhetorical flourishes, proclaiming seminal successes. They know Trump loves flattery. But the most unacceptable outcome for Xi is a regime collapse, a unified Korea. The Chinese won't sit still for that. Earlier this year, in a session at Mar-a-Lago, Xi explained the complexities of the Korean Peninsula to the US president. This time, he might offer another history lesson, reminding Trump that in 1950, General Douglas MacArthur assured Washington that a war with China over Korea was inconceivable. I wrote a piece at the end of August called China Rising, and I said its parabolic rise has been breathtaking. Millions of Chinese have been lifted out of poverty, and China continues to expand at a pace that other big economies can only dream about. Xi Jinping's OBOR program binds the world to Beijing because all the roads and railways have but one destination, and that is China. I also said Washington has metasized into an epicenter of risk Donald Trump refers, and talk of a unipolar, US-dominated world have largely evaporated. President Putin refused to be rolled over by a Victoria Nuland-inspired color revolution in the Ukraine and drew a line in the sand. And one of the collateral consequences of that was to send President Putin into the ready embrace of Xi Jinping. In fact, far from being a unipolar world, we have entered a bipolar or even tripolar world, US, China, and Russia. I also said, apart from a few half-hearted and timid FONOPS freedom of navigation operations, China has established control over the South China Sea. It has created artificial islands and then militarized those artificial islands across the South China Sea. It is a mind-boggling geopolitical advance. Any which way you care to cut it, China has advanced its footprint in Pakistan, where it has leased the Gwadar port, giving China and Central Asia access to the Gulf region and the Middle East for 43 years. Sri Lanka, which gorged on Chinese debt, has had to disgorge the Hambantota port to its creditor. And recently we saw China formally open a military facility in Djibouti. These moves, I said, taken together, speak to a material Chinese advance. The pivot to Asia, which was supposed to contain China, is dead in the water. China has sprung that trap. US is to soon stage a drill with 3 carriers as Trump visits Asia. 2017 is on track to be the hottest year on record, except for 2 warmed by the El Nino phenomena, the UN says. Even if the cyclical weather events which bump up global temperatures every 3 to 7 years are included, this year will be one of the 3 warmest ever, the WMO said as it issued its annual State of the Global Climate Report and talks in Bonn. Average temperatures from 2013 through 2017 are also likely to be the highest since accurate measuring began more than a century ago, constituting strong evidence of a long-term trend. Some 30% of the world's population now experience extreme hot temperatures for at least several days each year. The number of vulnerable people exposed to potentially lethal heat waves has increased by 125 million just since 2000. The past 3 years have all been in the top 3 years in terms of temperature records. November 2015, I said I cannot help feeling we are like frogs in boiling water. We have created massive interference in the cosmic fine-tuning phenomenon. State of the UK government right now, this is from Julia McFarlane. Foreign Secretary Gaff may cost UK citizen extra 5 years in an Iranian jail. Minister under fire for meeting with Netanyahu, brokered by a lobbyist without telling the Foreign Office. Deputy Prime Minister under investigation for extreme porn, and Defence Secretary quit amid sex misconduct claims. The great bond bull market may be coming to an end. An obscure charting signal that went off just as the 3-decade bull run in bonds started is close to reversing. The yearly MACD chart, moving average convergence and divergence for 10-year US Treasury yields, is getting very close to crossing the 9-year signal line. The two have met just once before, back in 1986, and the MACD's slide below the signal indicated momentum was there for the sort of declines in yield that the current long-term bond rally has delivered. If the two cross in the other direction, it would indicate the potential for sustained increases in yields. Treasuries traders may need to get ready for the Halley's Comet of chart points to appear. If it comes, it may be a signal the end of the market as they and their forebears have known it. I wrote about this a little preemptively in September 2016 in a piece called Mirrors on the Ceiling, the Pink Champagne on Ice, and I said a lot of risk calculations are based on value at risk. Essentially, you overlay a volatility measure over the portfolio and you calculate how much money is on the line. Central banks have suppressed volatility, therefore in real terms, investors are now holding bigger positions at these currently artificially suppressed levels. If volatility spikes, positions are going to be reduced en masse, or to put it another way and to borrow the lyrics from the Eagles song Hotel California, mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice, and she said, we are all just prisoners here of our own device. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the night man, we are programmed to receive. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. What is clear is that we're at the fag end of this party, I said. CFTC data show hedge funds and speculators slash long 10-year US Treasuries positions in the biggest bearish move seen this year and the third biggest ever. That's interesting. Currency markets, let's take a look. Euro dollar 116.07, dollar index 94.72, Japanese yen 113.95, Swiss franc 0.9982, the pound 131.66, the Australian dollar 0.7682, India rupee 64.645, South Korean won 11.1142, Brazilian real 324.96, Egyptian pound 17.6417, the South African rand 14.1055. Dollar index putting up a 3-month chart. I'm expecting it to go higher, notwithstanding the low. Euro dollar, this chart is from T Commodity. I'm still expecting it to go towards the 114.50 level, although we bounced severally from just below 116. New Zealand dollar last trading at 0.6935. I'm bearish about it, actually, looking for it to go below 69 and even below 68. New Zealand's government said that the independence of the Reserve Bank won't change and that it will retain the existing 1 to 3% inflation goal. The new administration also confirmed it's considering a dual mandate for the central bank of targeting full employment as well as price stability. Australia's 10-year bonds yielded 2.58% on Tuesday, 26 basis points below similar maturity US Treasuries. The premium has shrunk from more than 60 basis points in September and more than 1 percentage point in late 2014, making the Australian dollar a bit of a sell. Commodity markets, gold 1279.25, little bit of a bounce here. Brent crude, extraordinary rally, very impulsive and powerful. I think, that was an early warning of the geopolitical risk that now resides in the kingdom. Mind the gap, Brent WTI oil spread jumps to greater than $7 a barrel, and I'll put up a chart of WTI, which is currently trading at $57.46. We're still going higher in my view. Breaking, the First Lady, Dr. Grace Mugabe, has been endorsed for Vice President. Zimbabwe's Mugabe has sacked his Vice President, seen as the top succession candidate. Read this statement of the firing of his Vice President. Going back to July 2016, countries like Zimbabwe feel like they are right at the edge, which was described thus by Hunter S. Thompson. There is no honest way to explain it, because the only people who really know where it is are the ones who have gone over. From an article in Bloomberg, there is no doubt that Mugabe is on his way out, and his attempts to shape the future of ZANU-PF according to his will are facing resistance. Indeed, that's true. Congo sets presidential election for December 2018. Around 43 million voters have been registered. An election was originally scheduled for late 2016. The Electoral Commission has said last month that the presidential vote could not take place until April 2019 at the earliest, and the opposition had warned that the population would take matters into its own hands. The predatory regime wants to prolong the instability and misery of the people. We do not accept this fantasy calendar. Moishi Katumbi, but he's not even in the country. Kabila has ruled Congo since his father was assassinated in 2001. He says delays are owing to problems registering millions of voters across the vast forested country. Opponents say he's using them to eventually remove term limits that prevent him from standing again, as presidents in neighbouring Rwanda and Congo Republic have done. He denies that, but has not categorically said he will step aside. The corrupt must be steered to the side like unroadworthy vehicles, says Cyril Ramaphosa. Let's see if he can get his hands on the main prize. South African all shares up 18.4% in 2017 and at a record closing high. Dollar versus rand, 14.10. I'm looking for 14.40 and even further. Egyptian pound, 17.6417. Nigerian all share, up 37.42% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange, up 41.11% year to date. Kenya's B1 rating has been placed on review for downgrade due to high borrowing costs, large primary deficits, says Moody's. RenCap's Yvonne Mahanga has lowered her 2017 and 2018 Kenya GDP forecast after PMI drops off the charts to 34.4. Kenya shilling 103.595. Nairobi all share up 22.31% year to date. Read my article. This is the best time to buy Safaricom. There's a lot of talk about this boycott. I called it kindergarten politics. Safaricom is up sharply this year, although it fell about 50 cents yesterday. NSE 20 up 19.2% this year. Kenya Standard Group issued a profits warning, but bear in mind the share price is up over 103% so far this year. If you want to check into any share, last link on Rich Wrap-Ups, click on it, and then you'll see all the listed companies for you to click on. Thank you for stopping by. And by the way, we have Mindspeak on Saturday. If you care to come to the Intercontinental for breakfast and an interesting discussion, we serve breakfast from 9:30 and we start at 10 a.m. You're most welcome.